finding the gap, and that's how it works. So find out the undeserved need, and then you can able to achieve that. So we have here the expert person. What I can say is the mentor, the super mentor, and also super expert in business, marketing, technologies, and whatnot. So it's a great opportunity to have Phani sir today addressing to you people. He's a person who have a great patience, and also great listening skills, and delivering skills as well. So with this, so I wish you all the best, and please utilize this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I take the privilege to introduce our guest. So Phani sir is an accomplished business leader, angel investor, and an entrepreneur by choice, with a passion for nurturing young entrepreneurs and next generation enterprises, focused on grooming leaders for robust growth and execute strategies. He is currently the Chief Operating Officer at Bondtech Solutions, which is a Chicago headquartered technology company with offices in Hyderabad, Bhubaneswar, Kochi, and Dubai. Until recently, he was the Executive Director at TIE Hyderabad, which is a chapter of TIE Global Silicon Valley, which is US-based world's largest go-to network for entrepreneurs. Prior to that, he has held several significant leadership positions like Regional Director at Randstad India, the National Business Head at Adico India, and also National Sales Head for BFSI in Wipro-owned company, that is WEP. So Mr. Phani takes keen interest to coach many incubator CEOs, advises innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems on programming strategies, and he is a highly followed mentor, advisor in various government-run and funded innovation and startup agencies. So we are fortunate to have Mr. Phani here with us today. So I hand over to Phani sir.
Okay, thanks so much, Zahoor, for having me here, and Hafiz Basha. And I must congratulate Usmania TBI for conducting these tech talks. I think a series of them. I was told that we covered multiple sessions related to how to develop the idea, how to create a product, all of those in the past. So today, we're going to, like Zahoor mentioned, try and understand what happens, scenario where we are looking at a customer problem, and how do we get to the right solution, and how to achieve that in our startup journey. So that's me. You can actually connect with me on LinkedIn or any of the platforms that you can find me in the social media. And so the tech talks, we'll probably talk about the problem and solution fitment today. But before we get there, a quick overview on what are those definitions startup and the startup founder should ideally know, or somebody who is wanting to get into a startup world needs to really understand these terminologies, so that when we use them frequently, we shouldn't be really using them in a wrong context, right? So that's the objective of trying to understand these terms. So what is an entrepreneur? So all of us know that entrepreneur, each one has our own definitions. Let me try and tell you what I think an entrepreneur is. So entrepreneur is a person who says, I live my passion. That's something that all these entrepreneurs are ideally supposed to be having, and everybody says so. So is that enough? to be an entrepreneur. So someone says, I take risks and therefore I'm an entrepreneur. So that's another way of looking at, what do I call, how do I think of myself to be an entrepreneur. Someone else says, I create products, I create solutions, and hence I'm an entrepreneur. And probably all these together makes an entrepreneur comprehensive, complete person that we are trying to look at. So that's my definition of an entrepreneur who is passionate about something, willing to take risks, and create those solutions for a meaningful customer problem. Right. So that's being an entrepreneur. And what is an ideal journey to be an entrepreneur? I know that some of the participants would be students, or some of you would be looking at an idea and trying to solve some problem, etc. So the most successful path has been someone after they're professionally educated or having turned an employee, works for some time, learns something in the employment, then gets that expertise, takes it out, and turns to become a self-employed person or a consultant, or keeps working on that same passion that they really are going after. Over a period of time, when they start collecting some money into this self-employment, they turn to become what people call as a business owner. And this business owner, after having run the business successfully or exited the business, turns to become an investor. And this happens to be the most successful path if someone were to follow it. So that's something that has always been working for many people in the entrepreneurship journey. Now, so what's a startup? Ideally, if it were an in-person session, I would have asked the audiences to give me some answers. But here we are. As a definition, a startup is an organization that is formed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. This is what Steve Lung says. And the keywords are repeatable and scalable. So there can be a lot of business models, but we need to figure out which one of those really fit into both these categories, and therefore become a startup. Now, there's another term called company, right? So we all understand that a business owner runs a company, and that organization which a startup evolves to become is called a company. So when there is a search for a business model, it's in a stage, the first one called scalable startup, then it goes in the transition, does many things, and eventually the business model is stable, and therefore it becomes a company, right? So that's part of what happens, formation of a company. Now, there are more terms, right? So we introduce something called as business. Now, there is a startup which is scalable and repeatable business, has a business model which is scalable and repeatable. But what is business? So business, as a definition, is all about selling something. Right? So that's a primary activity that happens in a business, or they perform a service, right? So that's something else that the business does, and then they exchange these goods or services for money, or probably they barter with some other goods or services. But in essence, it's all about creating, delivering, and receiving that value. So there is a value that a business creates, and we create something, we deliver something, and we receive something in return. And that whole cycle is a business. Let's take an example closer home. I live in Hyderabad. There is this famous business which is called Ram Ki Bandi, where this person Ram serves sumptuous dosa in the midnight. And this Ramki Bandi evolved into a business model which is working. It's scaled over a period of time, and it's also repeated its service by expanding from one cart that we started the business with and moved into many geographies to expand. So what is the value that Ram is creating here? So Ram creates sumptuous dosa, that's a product, and then they delivers these dosa to people who are willing to buy from Ram. These are the customers, and if you notice, these customers are paying something. That's the revenue that the Ram Ki Bandi generates and captures as a part of the business cycle. And this is one such example of how a value is created by a product, delivering to customers, and capturing revenue in cash. So that's one of the examples of a very simple layman example of what it means to do business and how do we create this value on both sides. Right? This is an example again of an online ready to measure, made to measure apparels. The customer goes online, selects an apparel type, picks up the fabric, and selects some styling for themselves, gives certain measurements, probably makes a payment online using a gateway, and then this online tailoring service outsources to a third-party stitching, or probably does it by themselves and delivers the ready-made apparel, which is made to measure as per the order of the customer. And that's how, in these 8 stages, this online tailoring business completes creation of value, delivering the value, and collecting the value in terms of the money. Right? So these are just 2 examples, very close to what we know. That's why I'm going a little fast, because these are some things that we already probably have known. Now there is another term we used in the definition called business model. Business is creation of a value, collecting, delivering and collecting the value. But what is the business model? So business model is the plan which the business has to run its operations, understanding the revenue sources, getting the customer base, creating those products, and the financing. How do we close these loops in terms of creating that value, delivering and capturing the value. The how part of the business is called a business model. So this is broad definitions of the terms that we need to know when we're moving from, say, an idea stage, building a startup, and then converting that into a business model and creation of that company towards end of the goal. So just so that I'm sure many of you would have seen these model canvas. I'm just taking an example, it's available in the public domain. A business model of say McDonald's there, right? So the whole, on the left hand side you will see the partners, the activities, cost structure, resources, which is the input of creation of the business, the value of the business. And on the right hand side you will see the customer relationships, the segments, channels, revenue streams. This is what the value that is delivered to the customer, and how do we capture the revenue, that is the value that is for the company to scale and grow. And what connects the left hand side and the right hand side is usually the value proposition. How am I unique? What is my differentiator? What are my unfair advantages, and what do you have which differentiates every other business in the same model to your company, right, or your business model. Right. So that's said. The definition's done. Now I'd like to ask if anyone can answer this question. What is the most important factor in this entire, business that we discussed, or the business model that we discussed? So what are the various factors? Is it the team? Is it the product? Or is it the model? So what is the most important factor as per you? You can access your chat window, probably type in answer there. And then we'll see whether we have the right. Out of the three, which is the most important? Anyone can answer by typing the chat. Okay, somebody says product. Product again, I think. Yeah. So most of the answers seem to be revolving around the product being the most important factor. Let's see. I think that was true. Product is definitely essential to have a business model, but the very important factor beyond these three is the market or the customer, because it is only the market that pulls a product out of the startup. Because having a product is one thing, but having a market which the product caters to is another thing. So what is very, very critical and important is the market or the customer. So that's after studying many business models and successful startups, etc. Of course, Mark Anderson, most of us know. So he and the investor, all of us respect, says market is the critical and important factor for a business model or a company or a startup to be successful. Now, so what's market? Right? The market is the real opportunity. I think this is the most important aspect for the startup to be successful, like we said, and we'll come to that line called launch loop. So the next question, which is the most important factor amongst these four, or is there anything else? Right? So now we have idea, the model, the team, the funding, market access. What else? So between these four, okay, funding says something. So having an idea of the business model, which includes knowing your customer, the team, funding. So what's really important to be able to do well in that? Assuming that we understood our market, so what does the startup need? Okay, ideas. Okay, let the answers keep coming. We'll go to the detail there. If you know this person by name Bill Gross, he's an investor again, and he's written a book on investing. And in that, I think he studied more than 100 startups, successful ones, not so successful ones, and figured out for a company, even though they have a great team or a fantastic idea at the center, or identified their business model correctly, even achieve funding rounds, if they're not timed correctly into their in hitting their market, they lose the opportunity. So, for example, somebody created a unique mask, which is very different from the rest of the masks available in the market. In so 2020, when the timing was right, and they didn't launch that particular mask in time, tinkered around the product, or kept on working more and more on their business models, etc., and experimented on their workbenches. Then even if they release or launch it in 2022, for example, it will be too late for the market. Right? So that's what is timing. Not just knowing your customer, but timing it right in terms of releasing it at the earliest. And we'll in the next few slides try and understand, or we learn from some of these stalwarts in the market. It's important to launch product and then get your customer to tell you whether it is working or not working, what is working. Right? So who is this customer? In this case, customer is usually those who have their hair on fire. If you understand this metaphor, it is the person whose hair is really on fire and they need a solution as early and as quickly as possible. Right? So that's the urgency with which the person with whose hair is on fire is asking for a solution, and that's the problem or the customer or the market that we need to understand very, very clearly, and that's where the real opportunity lies. It's not a awesome product or a great idea, protect our ideas, and don't really let anybody know, etc., etc. I think these are all aspects of people who are already on the losing side of building their startups. So it is very important to know the problem and what is the real problem, and understanding that real opportunity. Dr. Zahoor said that we did design thinking. We also did some sessions on product. I'm sure you understand how to be so empathetic to the customer, to really understand what is it, the real problem lies, where is that real problem, and who is that person whose hair is on fire. And so that's identification of the real opportunity. Now, how do we fit a solution? If someone's hair is on fire, imagine whether we give them a hose, which is actually a perfect solution, with which they can douse the fire, or even if you give a brick in the hand of this person whose hair is on fire, they'll still try to hit their head with that brick, even though it is imperfect, to see that they can reduce that pain of the fire. So whether it is a hose or a brick, it really doesn't matter, perfect or imperfect. Users will be interested, and they're actually so pained that they'll be willing to try even a half-baked version 1 imperfect solution as well. So that's what is knowing the real problem and the identification of the opportunity, and giving. I'm not saying product solution that doesn't work, but even if it is half-baked, not so perfect, don't really have to tinker with that product. But I think we need to release or launch in the market very quickly. So that's the topic for today. Try and identify what is the solution fit for a problem. It's actually a problem and a solution fit actually. So how do we understand our ultimate goal to really get our customers to love to use such solutions? So knowing that is the critical and the most important aspect of any startup journey. So why do I say that? Look at this. If this is a journey of establishing the business model and scaling the business in startup, idea is, stage say -2. Stage 3 is establishing a business model and getting the market fit right. So the formation stage, which is where we work on the problem and the solution fitment, and that's the most critical phase to get things right. And that is when I have a concept, have a working to just presenting it to the customers to use, because they're pain, they are deeply in a problem, and to get them to tell us how this works, how what is working, what is not working, whether it is imperfect or what are the improvisations needed. It is no one else but the voice of customer, which is very important for us to really go and launch and listen. That's a bit I'll talk about in a bit. So what is, if I really expand the problem and solution fit stage, this is how it looks. We got an understanding of the problem, the real problem. There are people who are willing to really look at solutions or probably even pay for it. We get certain insights by studying and doing and knowing the problem area, customer requirement correctly, and then we define a solution, which we are confident that it works. We create some kind of an offer around this solution we receive from the problem or the market, and then that's when we present this offer to the potential customers who has this problem. Right? So once this loop launch, and then they give us some feedback. And once this loop is completed, this launch, listen, loop is when an MVP, so-called lovable product, that gets created. So that's the definition of what the PS fit is all about. And double click a little bit deeper into it. These are the stages and the milestones. I can probably share these details with the group to all of you, but these are probably steps expanded in terms of number of weeks or how much time it takes to really get first of all the problem assumptions, get the hypothesis right, validate those hypotheses, right, and then create a canvas around it, try and experiment a few solutions, give it back to the customer, then take some feedback, build some certain prototypes that work. That entire cycle, those stages, if you can move much faster, like a sprint, week on week, and then get to the final MVP of the mostly finalized perfect solution. Right? So from brick, to that example of a person whose hair is on fire, to the hose, it is a journey to really get the product right. So to get that entire product right, we must ideally have to go through these stages of problem interviewing, which is asking the customer what their real problems are, and getting to the core of where the problem lies, getting those solutions on the workbench, confidently to present those solutions, get their validations on them, discover whether we're going a path or not, and finally get to that right solution or the right fit product. Right? So that's in essence this journey looks like. I'll stop here. If there are any questions or something that's bothering, or let me see the chat window. Okay, so there is a query here. I'm just trying to read that and try and understand if I get it right. How can I attract more customers in lesser time? There are frameworks. I'll get to that in a bit. How can I become a manufacturing business while doing a 9-to-5 job? It's a choice. if you're passionate, if you're willing to take risks, and that you're confident that you can create as an entrepreneur's definition that I mentioned. And how can I make a billion rupee customer? So you can only make a billion rupee customer if we get the customers who are willing to pay and identify their problem correctly, get that problem and solution fitment right, and then scale it to MVP and then take it forward. So that's the whole journey. It doesn't come easy. It takes a lot of time, but if we are professional enough, use certain frameworks
अच्छा मैं देखा नहीं
that
सर
can resolve and bring that time down, I think world is a canvas.
अभी
Everybody can definitely win if they are passionate and creative enough to be able to do that. Right. So that's my answer to his question. Any other questions? You can either type it or access your mics if they are available to ask that question. So far, we just covered some definitions, understood what is the stage at which a problem and the solution fitment is essential to be done, and why it has to be done. Because without knowing customers, without knowing the real problem in the market, I don't think any product that we create, it's not easy to really take to market. So many people who normally come back and tell us that build your product first, and then there'll be people who will be willing to buy. Not necessarily so always. That's also reason why out of 100 such ideas, only 2% succeed to go to the next levels, and that's because 98% of them didn't know their market right. Okay, so let's Vikrant says how to find initial team that is a core team in a startup. So that's for another day. I'm sure we come to that stage, but look at this. So once we get this fitment right, is when we look for the team, not the team first, right? So team is essential. We need those experts, but not really at the beginning of time. So first get the ideas and the problem and the solution stage right, and then team will automatically come to it. It is the solution that the team, and we sell this problem and solution stage to get or attract the team. If it is not validated by few customers of the market, even why will the team really be interested? So Mahesh, there is no such thing as beginning or the end. It's a loop. It's a continuous journey. The product into market. It's not the product into the market. It is actually a solution that goes into validation first from an idea. And once there are people who are willing to back it, then your product becomes more robust. Because it's not a product that we think will work, but the customer should agree that it works. So let me just jump into that. I think that's the next part of what I'm going to cover now. So if we understood this expansion of not jumping from an idea to a product straight away, but going through these phases of validating those problems first and then the solutions later. And going to the market means even to validate my problem, I need to go to my market, which is ask my customers, whether I got the problem statement right or not. That's one of the reasons why we keep doing those things. Or go to those customers and say, if this is the kind of solution they're ideally looking for, is that what they will need to buy? So these are also the reasons why we do a lot of interviews during problem stage or the solution stage itself. Not even that's much before the product stage, or even getting into designing a prototype. What am I saying here? So that's the idea. Just do a 2x2 matrix, for example. The idea on the x-axis and the problem on the y. And then what happens, right? So if the idea is right, we identify the problem right, and the idea or the solution is a match, then if both are checked, then go and build it. Right? If the problem statement is right, but the solution or the idea is wrong, then it is go back and iterate. Right? So problem is right, but my idea of solution is not right. So we go and iterate. But if the problem statement is wrong, maybe the solution is right. That's when I think, we need to pivot and say, oh, I'm not solving this problem, but there is something else which needs to be solved, and therefore I'm pivoting there. If both are wrong, I think we need to go back to the drawing board and redefine our own problem statements. So that's a 2x2 matrix, which tells us what is it that I'm doing right, what is it that I'm not doing right. Sometimes the idea or the solution is wrong, sometimes the problem is wrong. That who can tell us? Only the market, only the customer. No one else can tell us. It's not our own thinking in our own heads or maybe the few people in the team. It's not about what we decide in the office solves the problem also. Because actually the market will tell us. We need to listen to the market more intently than anything else. Right? So that's the critical aspect. So that's something that as a point I'm trying to make here. So others are numbers. It can be 1, it can be 20, it can be 100. Right? So when do we say that I got my problem and solution fit? It is not one customer. The business has to be repeatable and scalable to be called as a startup. So it is not just solving one person's problem or one situation that we're trying to solve. So it is at least, just some numbers, a dozen of them must have that kind of a problem, right? So they're all looking for the solution, which means the 12 different people whose hair is on fire for the same reason. Right? So same problem everybody is facing. Therefore, we are trying to solve it for them. At least that's a realistic number. And how do we get to those 12? We may have to talk to hundreds of people to know that. Right? So that's the stage 1. And all of them are at least saying that, I need a solution. I'm really, really pained. I need a solution. If somebody is going to solve this, I'm going to be good. Otherwise, the problem is not there. It may be a problem for a very few people. It may not be a startup idea. It can be some kind of a service that we deliver, and for those 3, 4 people or 5 people, and that's a good end. So that is this number right? It can be 24, but at least this is the minimum traction that we need to get problem solution fitment stage. And if you have a solution, if this is a solution, and 5 of them at least come out in the 12 saying that I'm really willing to use it. Right? I can probably use and help you to scale that solution. So imagine there is a market. There are 12 different customers who have the same problem. They're struggling with it. Right? And all of them say that, yes, if there is a solution, they're interested. So that is the first validation. The stage at which we know that we are solving a real problem, which is worth solving. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Then 5 of them will say, yes, the solution that you are giving me, these items, yep, I agree. I'm willing to work with you if you're willing to really deliver the solution that we're proposing. Right? You made an offer, they're fine with all of those parameters or most of those parameters, and they're willing to work to get the solution become a scalable product. Now, out of these, there are at least one feature of that entire list of features that you have on the problem that they're willing to pay for. Five of them are saying, yeah, I'll at least pay for one feature, the first one. I'll give you small money, work on it. Unless we get this as a confirmation, 12 customers having the same problem, they're asking for a solution, 5 of them willing to test, validate, and they're willing to pay at least for one feature. So that's the loop. If those checkboxes are ticked for us, it's more or less saying that this is a solution that I can really work. And that's when somebody asks for a team, right? So that's when the team kicks in. That's when we get some basic money to be able to invest in people, or probably invest in the machinery or the raw material or anything else that is required to build that prototype or almost working product. Right? So that's the stage at which your angels or any of those early investors will kick in. If this is not there, and we are just talking about an arbitrary problem which we think is a real problem, about a solution which we assume it will work, not having any backup of clear names, customers, or at least details of people who are willing to pay, or some kind of an LOI commitments, etc. Why would an investor want to take a risk there? So that's in essence, how an investor wants to look at whether this is the right problem that this startup is trying to solve, or this founder is trying to solve. Is there going to be a promise at the end of that? And there is something to review over this journey of building that MVP. So that's where these are the numbers that you can remember, which will be useful. So, are there frameworks? Can we use some kind of a scientific model? There are. If you look for any problem solution fit canvas, you will find a few of them. So, where we can keep adding details in terms of what is the definition. Why did I really think that this is a good problem to solve? That's on the first line, mostly on the customer details. What is it that I'm solving, etc. Then where is the problem? What is the root cause for the problem? Why is this problem occurring? So multiple aspects in terms of the interview insights based on the surveys that we do, etc., etc. So we get to these aspects. Then, which are those triggers? Which are those reasons why somebody is having these problems, and what is my solution there? And if I really release, how will these customers behave? Those channels behave. So this is a framework which I just picked from somewhere. You can customize these, but the idea is to just know who is the customer, what are the limitations for them to buy or use, and how am I going to be different than the competition or something that they're already using. Right? So if they're already using a brick, how am I going to propose is a better solution without that part. Right? Then the next aspect is getting more detailed on the problem. What is the problem that we're solving? Why is it urgent? Or why is it costly for them to use the current existing solution? And therefore, why are they pained? Can I really support? Is that going to be used? Do I know what really changes their mind to shift from the previous solution to the current one? And then of course if I really build it, what are my issues? You know, how do I really? So, is it the UI? Is it this? Is it that? What makes it relevant for them to take my solution? And maybe will they be happy? Will they be partially happy? What really is a change in mood from the existing solution to the solution that I am proposing? And then, how can I be close to the customer? And how is this solution going to be simpler, easy to use, not very complex, blah blah blah. So those are certain ideas that we get, or the insights that we derive based on the studies we do, based on the interviews we conduct, or the questionnaires that customers are answering, and then neatly categorize them into this canvas. Keep looking at it. That's our own document. It keeps changing because we launch something, we realize something else is happening, and therefore we're going to go and change. So why am I changing? What am I changing? How am I versioning it? So all these are part of the whole journey of getting a problem and solution fit, uh, moving it into a working MVP or a product. Uh, so these are the frameworks. There are many such things, but these are two examples that I used. So that's where I stop, but I will recap a little bit so that we get these definitions and probably stick to those in a bit. Any questions at this point of time? Does it make sense?
Sir, can you play the earlier slide?
Oh, okay, I will do that.
One moment, sir.
If I could take a screenshot, I will share the
screenshot, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, any thoughts around this concept? Because this is the most forgotten stage in many ideas and startups in their journey. It's not specific to any region, world over. Go to Y Combinator, Mark Anderson, or any of these people, they say that people come with an MVP already, and with a very little explanation about how they got to this problem, why did they choose certain problem, and if they have chosen this problem, what were those iterations they've done to get to this current solution that they're presenting. What did they learn through that journey of iterations? So many of those are usually missing. The moment it is missed, because none of the investors are experts in what the founder knows, because founders always know much more than the investors in terms of the product, in terms of the real problem, in terms of the market, in terms of everything else. Right? If they are not able to explain these details in convincing manner, then investor doesn't get convinced, and they grow a little suspicious about the ability to work. Maybe somebody else would have already done it. How much is this founder really aware of his own market? So these are the questions that never gets ended in their train of thoughts. Some queries they will ask, but if they're not getting convincing answers, they look bad or sharp. So that's what usually happens when people really say some story to the investors without even so that's what everyone says, that spend more time here. Limited to the number of weeks or days or examples, but like I have shown, 12 and 5 is not a big deal of work, right? So it is easy. Instead of meeting 20 investors, it makes sense to actually meet 12 potential customers and get them to give us their consent in terms of that they buy, not buy. Or at least 5 of them are signing an LOI saying that I'll buy if you give me the solution. So that's when it is easy to go to the investor than to really, from an idea, just jump directly. So that's the. So let's recap. So what's market or a problem in one word? You can type it in your chat. Yeah, I'll get to your question. Let's recap. So what's market in one word? A problem. Any attempts? It's actually the pain, right? Somebody's hair is on fire. All they get is pain. If somebody's pain, that's the market for us, right? So there is a pain. If there is no pain, then there is nothing that we can do with it. So if market is pain, so what's the solution of the product? In 2 words. Now this is just English. Any takers? Market is pain. A problem is pain. So what is
Painkillers. That is a painkiller.
Absolutely. So that's painkiller. Like I said, it's just simple English. Nothing complex about it. So if we really get the right, if we identify the pain right and correctly, then we know which paracetamol or the antibiotic that we need to prescribe. If you don't know the pain, then any tablet is a tablet, right? So it doesn't work. It's like going to the chemist and saying, मुझे एक painkiller दे दो, वो कुछ भी दे सकता है. So that's not how markets work. For every pain there is a specific painkiller or a specific, antibiotic or a paracetamol. So that's very critical to know what is the pain and what is the how is that behavior when you get the right painkiller. Right. Okay. This I don't think I've covered team today. So team is it's just an acronym. So the only thing that matters is problem and a solution fit. So that's something that is critical to identify initially. Otherwise, after having gone ahead in the journey, it might be tough to come back because some of our original assumptions were wrong. Right? It's very costly to really redo the whole thing. So this is a journey. Someone asked, what is the time it takes? So step 1 is to prove that there is a real problem. Know that problem correctly. And step 2 is to prove that the solution solves this problem and not something else. Right? And therefore, customer would love to use that solution. And the step 3 is prove to ourselves that they will pay in case they like the solution. Right? So it's not just liking the solution. Oh, de do, free mein de do. Take my company's brand logo, put it in your website. That's not it's not for a social service. They need to really pay cash. It can be small change, but there has to be some kind of a value. And then fourth stage is a proof that we can scale. So unless we cross the 4 stages, if it takes 6 months, 6 years, so be it. But these are the 4 stages that one needs to prove to say that my product works and it can scale and it will generate repeatable business. So unless these are proven, no investor wants to really risk putting money there. So that's the important factor of why PS Fitment is required. So the solution fit mantra is, like I said, launch, even though it is imperfect, even if it is half-baked, even if it is just version 1, but it works. Then listen to the customer. There's a lot of feedback that comes. We need to have patience, we need to have empathy, we also need to have the courage to listen to the feedback, not obstruct the feedback. And then loop it back into the solution. So, this solution fit is launch, listen, loop, launch, listen, loop. It continues to happen till we get it right and the market pays for it. Right? So the whole aspect is any startup or any idea or any solution or any product can be successful only if the customer succeeds by having used it. The pain is taken away, not temporarily but permanently if it is possible. So when do we know that the fit is happening, the right fitment? If the demand for the solution is growing, there are revenues that are coming into your bank, we find limited time to go and tinker the product. There is a lot of those product change aspects that are pending, but we are moving, sales is growing, etc., etc. And we need a lot of people to hire, a lot of people to sell, all of those. So if any of these is happening or multiple of them are happening, we know that the fitment is happening. If it is not happening, then customers are not seeing any value. There's no word of mouth that is spreading. Even if we tell the press our story, their writings are not compelling. Nobody is calling. Your sales guys are coming back without closing deals. So when any of these happening, we need to really go back to drawing board because we didn't do something right. The problem and solution fitment itself. Right? So that's the why problem solution fit essentially even before a product market fit, a business model fit, founders start your right. So that's the essence of today's discussion for us. I hope I have not exceeded my 1 hour. Just about an hour that we started. So thank you for your time.
Any further questions from participants?
So there's still a question there. What can be gestation period for a new product in a new market? I don't know. I mean, if the market is already ready and if they're waiting for a solution, what will be the delay? There's no such thing as, I build a product, I create a product and then put it into the market. That's very, I don't know, it can take any long because we don't know whether the market really needs or doesn't need. So, but if market is validated, we know the problem existed and we are convinced and there are, customers, to back it saying that if this vision is what they get, they'll be willing to pay for it. then where will be the gestation period? If the hair is on fire, people don't wait. If the hair is not on fire, then they don't need that solution at all. So that, does it answer, Sai? So any other thoughts? Anything else coming to your mind? Why a product problem solution set is important even before getting into launching products? Okay, that should do.
If there
Back
are
to
no
you,
more
Dr.
questions,
Hafiz.
I think we can close the session. I think there is one in the text box, one query.
Those are gratitude messages. Thank you for that.
Okay, right. So once again, on behalf of Osmania University and Osmania Technology Business Incubator, I would like to thank our today's esteemed speaker, Shri Phani Pattamatta ji, for spending his time with the participants. I'm sure most of your doubts or questions might have already been answered. So anyways, we will be sharing the feedback form to all the participants, and we will be happy to get your feedback, which we will forward it to Phani sir. So thank you for participating and making this Tech Talk series a good session for all participants, and look forward for next session in the next alternate Wednesday. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hafiz and Zahur. So do you take pictures? Are people going to switch on their cameras or not really? Anyway,
So all participants, you can switch on your camera if you are willing. We will take some screenshots.
and I'm happy to come to Osmania anytime. I'm an alma mater.
Definitely, sir. 26th, this month 26th, we are hosting the Telangana Incubators and Accelerators meet at OTBI.
Okay. But if there is anything to do with alumni affairs activities, let me know. I'm an alma mater of you.
Definitely, sir. It will be our privilege.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much to all.
Thank you all.
Have a nice day. Bye.